All right. Good morning, church. Good morning, fam. How you guys doing? Doing good? Doing good? Awesome. Wow, that was pretty loud. You guys are on it. And I'm proud of you guys. That is awesome. Hope you guys had a good week. Yeah? I had all sorts of interesting week. We actually just moved this weekend. So in preparation for our move to Portland, we've moved in with Noah and Julia in their 2-bedroom apartment. So we just went from a house to a room, which meant we got rid of stuff that you've never seen before, and then stuff that you're also really attached to. It was a crazy weekend. And I know that's true for a lot of us. We come in here with all kinds of a scale of what our week looked like, right? Some of us, we maybe had the worst week of our life. Some of us, maybe we had the best week. But I think no matter what, it's beautiful because we have a God that loves us and cares about us. And man, I hope that you grab onto that this morning. If nothing else, like that video said, the God that we serve, the deity that is in front of us, Jesus, if anything, personifies love. He knows exactly what that looks like. He knows exactly what it means to sacrifice for it. And I hope that this morning, man, I hope that you get a good glimpse of that. For those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Wes. I'm one of the pastors here. I hope that if this is one of your first times or your first time that you felt like family here, that's part of our whole purpose is we want to feel like family, and I hope that you did. You guys ready to jump into this? All right, I'm going to pray and let's do it. God, we are so grateful that we get a chance to be here. God, let us never forget how awesome you are, that you are the God, just like that song said, you are the God of 1,000 generations, that you are the God that breathes in 8,000 million trillion people and animals and everything that has ever lived is created by you. God, that mountains exist because of you, rivers exist because of you, all of our highs and our lows, you were there through all of it. God, let us never forget that. God, no matter what our week looked like, God, let's just lay it down before you right now. God, let's hear the words that you have for us, and God, let it impact us. Let it begin to change our heart and to mold us. In your name, amen. So in that video, one of the things that this guy says is he says, Jesus is really like the person that would have invited anybody to the table. And I thought that was such an interesting line if you think about it. I think we're very close-knit with who we will allow into our lives. Is that fair? More often now, especially our dinner table, especially if we're going to go out to eat with you, especially if it's an intimate act like that, it is someone that we care about and that we know and that we love. And here's Jesus. He'll literally invite anybody in. There's a song out right now. Hillsong United just came out with a new song. I'm obsessed with their new album, by the way. If you haven't checked out Wonder, it's amazing. But they came out with a song, and one of the lyrics in this song says, "You met me at the sinner's table." And I think, man, how cool is that? That this is where Jesus met us, because we were all sinners at one point, right? And Jesus invited us to his table. We're going to be in Luke 15. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and open there, and we're going to open this idea up. I think this is so cool. Luke 15, 1 through 2. And it says this. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to hear him. So all the sinners are gathering in to hear them. All those people that are seen as far from God, right? And the Pharisees and the scribes begin to grumble, saying, "This man receives sinners and he eats with them." I think this is beautiful because this is really the story of all of us, right? Romans 5:8 tells us this, that while we are still sinners, Christ died for us, right? And another translation says that this is how he demonstrated his love, that while we were still sinners, he died for us. This is a God that is always inviting us in. He is always pulling us in. He is always inviting us to his table. And yet here's the Pharisees, they begin to complain. I think the easiest way to think of this is it's the religious people that begin to complain. I think that's maybe one of the most ironic things about Christianity or religion in general is it's the religious people that begin to judge the most, right? And they so quickly forget that they were the sinner once, and now they begin to judge others. And they begin to complain, they begin to grumble and say, "Jesus, how could you bring these people in? Don't you know that if you associate with them, that people will begin to think that you're like them, that you talk like them, that you act like them? Whether or not you do, people are going to begin to associate you with them. You don't want to do that, Jesus. Are you kidding me? These people curse. These people have sex outside of marriage. These people do all kinds of things that Why would you associate with them? Why would you associate with them, Jesus? What are you thinking? They begin to grumble. And I want you to think of it this way. I want you to put yourself as one of the Pharisees. Like, I always like to get into the story. I always like to think from that kind of mindset. Like, if I was there, imagine if you were a Pharisee, what are the types of people, if they came to the table, you'd begin to complain about? Because I think most of us, if we're honest, I'm not saying this is true of everyone in the room, but I'm saying most of us, if we're honest, there's people that could come to the table that we would begin to complain that they were there, right? There's people that could come through the doors and we would start to get nervous that they were here. We would start to feel uncomfortable, whether it's because of their sexuality or their drug abuse or whatever it is, we would start to say, I don't know if that's someone that I should associate with. So here's the Pharisees. They begin to grumble at Jesus. They begin to complain. And Jesus, as Jesus is, I think this is probably one of the coolest things about Jesus, is when people complain or grumble around him, homeboy begins to teach. That's what he does. And so he begins to teach, and this is what he says in verse 3. So he told them this parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. Just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. And so Jesus is doing something really interesting right here. You can keep that up for a second if you want. So Jesus does something really interesting. When he talks about the 100 sheep, who is he talking about? All of us, though, right? He's talking about humanity as a whole. This is the 100 sheep. Everyone that has ever lived or ever will live, everything that has ever existed. This is humanity. Or if we want to zoom it in maybe a little bit farther to make it easier for us, this is our city, 100 sheep. Now, here's the interesting thing about that, is he has 99, right? How many did he lose? He loses one. For all you math whizzes in here, what percent is that? 1%, right? So 99% are found and one is lost. Here's the deal. If we had a city that 99% of the people had encountered Jesus and were in church and were in life groups and were growing, would we not say that that was a huge success? Right? If there was a pastor that moved to this city and started preaching and 99% of the city came to him and got saved and baptized and started following Jesus, we would view him as a megastar, right? We would want to copy him. We would want to look up. He would write books. We would all read it. Man, this is how you find the lost. This is how people come to church. This is amazing. And yet for Jesus, that's not good enough. Isn't that interesting? 99% for us would be unbelievable, but Jesus' mind immediately goes to the 1%. And I think in America, we're very caught up in numbers. We love to say we're a 50-person church, we're a 100-person church, we're a 300-person church. I go to a 10,000-person church. I worked at a 4,000-person church. We love saying the numbers, and it's almost like we do it in reverse. We get more caught up with who is in the church than who is not in the church. And Jesus' focus is on the one. It's on the 1%. He says, man, as long as there is one, I'm going to chase that one down. Because this shepherd is really an example of Jesus, right? And it should be an example of us. And he says, really, until you understand this point, you don't get it. You have to always focus on the lost. And so often we kind of do the opposite. We get excited about us and we get excited about those that are here. I think another way we would say it would be like this. As long as there is lost, you are not the sole focus. Like, can I say that to you? Or can we be close enough that I can say, like you are not the sole focus, right? And like, we don't think that way because we think, man, we come here and it's really about me, right? Like the message, Wes, it better move me today, right? I better feel something from it. I'm going to share it online if I did. And if I didn't, I'm not going to, right? Like I better feel something from the message, right? I better really feel something during worship, man, that everything better be on cue and it better be perfect. And I really want to just feel that and sense that. And if there's not donuts out there, someone's going to lose their head, right? Like, we think it's all about us. And Jesus basically says, man, that's great that you are found. I am so excited that you're one of the 99. But what about the one? What about the one that is lost? And I think sometimes we tend to forget about that. I think sometimes we completely lose our focus. And I wonder what it would be like to really be reminded. Because see, I would argue that the reason sometimes that there's more lostness out there than there should be is because we're okay excluding people. There are people that we do not want to come to our table. There are people that we do not want to invite in. There are people that we would feel uncomfortable with. And I would even ask you that question, like who do you feel uncomfortable with not being excluded? Right? Like, who would you feel uncomfortable with if they walked in the doors? And I think this is like one of the great plagues of the church. As we have said that there's certain people groups or certain things, and I don't have time for that message. That'll be another day, I guess. But we have said that there are certain people that, like, man, it is just easier if they're on the outside, right? I mean, I don't want someone that's going to come in here and be dirty and gross. I don't want anybody that's homeless in here. I mean, if they sit next to me and they smell, I don't want that. I don't want someone that I maybe don't understand their sexual orientation. I don't understand the struggle they're going through. So I don't really want them in the doors. I don't want someone that just shot up heroin last night because I don't even know how to have a conversation about that one. So I'm more comfortable if everybody that comes in the door looks like me. And Jesus thinks so opposite because he says, I'm going to go for 100%, which means no one is excluded. I want to invite everyone to my table. And I think the reason for a lot of us, this is an uncomfortable point, but I think the reason, especially for me, that it's uncomfortable is the people that are the most upset is the pastors. It's the religious leaders. It's the Pharisees. It's the Sadducees. It's the rabbis that are looking at Jesus and going, what the heck are you doing? Why would you bring them in? Why? It's the pastors that miss the point. It's the leaders that miss the point. But Jesus says no one is excluded. This is a God that always chases after lostness. You know how I know that? Because I was one of the people that was at the sinner's table, and I sat there as a sinner. I was one of the people that was excluded. And I think all of us can remember those times if we actually think about it. I think so often we forget that. But all of us have sat at that table as the outsider before. And it was love that pulled us in. It was Jesus that pulled us in. And I never want to go from a position of being lost and being a sinner to suddenly being a judger and an excluder. I don't think that's what Jesus ever called us to. And I think when we jump into the story, we'll see this. So in Luke 15, verse 4, let's look at this again. Let's just go ahead and keep that verse up. It says, what man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open field and go after the one that is lost? What's that word? Until he finds it. Until. See, this is the thing, and I think this is one of the things that we forget. He looks until he finds it. There's never a point where Jesus gives up. There's never a point where he stops searching after the person. There's never a point where they have wandered out far enough from where he started. They've never gone far enough that he's like, you know what? I'm not traveling that far. That's too many mountains. That's too many valleys. I'm not walking that kind of distance. You're on your own now. You made your choice. Jesus never does that. He looks until he finds it. And if I can be honest with you, can I do that? Like, this for me is probably one of the hardest things. Because I think if you work in ministry, and I'm not even saying as a pastor, if you're someone in here that mentors people and you disciple people and you love people and you bring them into your home and you feed them dinner, and you know that more often than not, you get hurt a lot. And there's a lot of people that you search after and you so desperately want them to come to Christ. And you do everything that you can. And they just keep wandering, and they keep wandering, and they keep doing everything that they shouldn't. All the advice that you've given them, all the scripture you've given them, and they do the opposite. And for me, one of the hardest things, like if I'm honest, I hit a point where I go, bro, I'm done. Like, I have done everything for you that I can. I have sat and I've pleaded with you. I have begged with you. I've done everything I can to bring you into the fold of God. I feel like my hands are clean at this point. Any of you guys ever been there? For honest, of course, probably, because it's not easy. And yet Jesus, he never stops. You imagine this like imagery of this shepherd looking out for the sheep. I wonder how many mountains he had to climb over, how many valleys he went through, how many thorn bushes he went through. If at one point his sandals came off and he's walking barefoot because his sandals gave out, like, how far did he go to find this one sheep? I think the answer is as far as it took. See, we have a line so often we say, this is how far I will go. And after that, the relationship's done, man. I've done everything I can. And Jesus just continues until he finds it. Look at this in verse 5. And when he has found it. So there's this assumption that if you don't give up, at some point you will find it, right? Which is interesting. He says, and when he finds it, he does what? He lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. Why does he lay it on his shoulders? That sheep's wandered a long way. Why does he lay it on his shoulders? That sheep be tired, right? Like, it has wandered through mountains, it's wandered through valleys, it's gone through thorn bushes, maybe it's crossed some river. That sheep is tired. And yet, what does he do? He picks it up and he puts it on his shoulder. He never looks at the sheep and goes, man, you are tired because you chose to wander. You're your own fault for being tired. You shouldn't be tired. You could have just stayed with me. You could have had a great life. You chose to wander. You're the reason you're worn out. Man, you're the reason you're tired. Heck, I'm tired too. I travel the same distance as you, bro. That's not what he does. He's so excited that he found this sheep, the sheep that had been lost for an undisclosed length of time. Who knows how long the sheep was out there? He is so excited that he grabs this sheep and he puts it on his shoulders, rejoicing. It's the sheep's fault that it's tired, but Jesus doesn't care. He doesn't even scold it. He doesn't even get upset at it. It's almost like he just says, man, it's okay, I'll take you home. You have forgotten where home is, but it's all right, I know where it's at. And I'll throw you on my shoulders and I will take you there. Man, have you ever searched for someone for so long? Someone that you desperately wanted to see come to Christ. That by the time they were like, okay, I want to do this, they were so worn out and they were so tired, they couldn't even do it on their own. You know what we're called to do in those moments? Scold them, right? Get really angry, be like, dude, I told you so many times. I begged you, I pleaded you, come on. Right? That's what we do. No. We throw them on our shoulders and we go, that's all right. I know the way home. In verse 6, it says this, and when he comes home, he brought the sheep home, right? You see like this full journey of Jesus searching after the lost. When he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors. Basically, it's almost like everybody within shouting distance, right? Like, can you imagine? It's almost like he gets home and he just starts shouting, I found my sheep! Come here, everybody, come, party, right? Like, that's how excited he is. He's crazy. He calls in everybody that is even remotely close, and he says to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. And he brings everyone together. I want you to think about this. Look at these words. When he comes home, right? Immediately, when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors. Did he wash that sheep first? Did he give it a bath? Did he make it presentable? Because this sheep must have been filthy at this point, right? It is trucked through all kinds of stuff. It has all kinds of dirt on it. It has all kinds of mud. Its wool has probably grown out. It is nasty looking. Is there ever a part in the verse where he says, but first, before I brought the people in, I shaved it and I cleaned it and I made it beautiful and pure? No. He brings the sheep to church, if you will, exactly how it was. And they celebrated together. How crazy of a picture is that? And see, so often in church we think the opposite, right? You better clean that sheep up first. Man, don't you walk in these doors still cursing or smoking or drinking. Don't you even think about it. It's not what he does. He loves the sheep. He's so excited that the sheep is home. I want you to think of it this way. Even in that state, he's what? He's proud of the sheep. The sheep has done nothing for him to be proud of other than be stupid. Like that, he's done nothing for him to be proud of. But he loves him and he honors him. And I imagine there does come a point at some point, right, where he starts working on the sheep and he begins to shave it and begins to clean it up. One day it looks like a totally different sheep than the sheep that wandered off. But not in that moment. In that moment, he was just excited to have him home. And I want you to think of this too. Does it say anywhere that the shepherd cleaned off? Imagine he went through a lot of the same stuff. Trucked through the same stuff. You know, it says in Scripture that he who knew no sin became sin for our sake. That's what Jesus did. He took all of our mud and all of our dirt and all of our filth so that he could carry us home. This is the God that we serve. He never stops searching after lostness. He celebrates when someone comes home, and so should we. In verse 7, he ends it with this, just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who have no need. I think this is the easiest way to think of that, is there's nothing more important. There's nothing more important than searching after that one. That's where we really need to go. He says, guys, I am so glad that you are found. Don't think that I've forgotten about you. Don't think that I love you any less, because I probably have the same story for you. Don't think that I love you any less, but there's still one out there. I'm going to go for him. Then Jesus continues his thoughts really on this idea of lostness. In verse 8, and he tells another story. He says, or what woman, having 10 coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and her neighbors and says, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I lost. So I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. See, this is Jesus. He begins to really tell this story on the value we place on things. Right? This woman loses a coin, verse 8. Or what woman having 10 coins, if she loses one, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? So she has 10 coins and she loses one, and immediately her thought is, I have to find it. There's enough value in this that I should find it. And one silver coin was 1 denarius, which is about a day's wage. So you think for us, it's like what, like 70, 80 bucks, something like that. I mean, we're all on different scales, I guess. But some of us, we would search for that, right? If it was $70, we're like, I'm tearing this house up. Some of us would be like, that's probably not worth it. Like, I'll find it when I find it or whatever, like it's not the biggest deal in the world. And you begin to see like there's different value on things sometimes. I think even in our house, we have these things, right? Like we have things that are incredible value. Like for me, like I'm a little bit weird. Like I really like vinyl and record players. So like my favorite record is a Fleetwood Mac one from when they were live in Chicago. I don't know if there are any Fleetwood Mac fans in here, but that album is amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna wear it out, to be honest. It's like my tester album. Anytime I mess with speakers or anything, like that's the one that goes on. And if I was like looking through and I didn't find that, I'd be tearing my place up, like for sure. I'd be tearing that place up. But there are also things that I could lose and I probably wouldn't even care, right? Like maybe the shoes that I never wear, if all of a sudden they weren't on the little shoe rack thing anymore, I'd be like, I don't even really care. I don't even know the last time I wore them. But if they were my favorite shoes, I'd search for them, right? Like we place different values on different things. Some of us would think that's worth it, and some of us wouldn't. But this woman understands something about worth. Anything that is lost is worth finding in the kingdom of God. And so I think there's people out there that some of us would lower the value of them and say, man, they're really not worth searching after. And others of us would say, no, they really are. They're so worthy. Here's Jesus saying, man, everybody is worthy. If she loses one coin, does she not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently? And then again, what's that word? Seek diligently until she finds it. She's going to find it. What's the first thing she does? She lights a lamp. What's the implication there? It's dark, right? Good call, guys. It's dark. It'd be weird if she lighted a lamp at night or during the day, I guess. It's definitely like night, right? It's dark. She lights a lamp. She is searching in the darkness. The only way we can find what is lost in the dark is to bring light to the dark. She understood this. She understood, man, if I'm going to find something that is lost in the dark, I better bring my light with me. She begins searching. She looks throughout the night. You get this idea that she looks everywhere that she can in her house, right? She's sweeping. She's looking diligently. She's searching under everything. She's looking in the places. Anybody like have places in your house that are like kind of gross? Like if you're honest, right? Like maybe under the couches, under the oven, bathroom. Like some of us, we have places in our house that are gross, right? She's not afraid to go to the places that are dirty. She's not afraid to go to the places that are gross, right? That's like even the implication with needing a broom is that she was going to some places that were dirty, that were gross, that were probably uncomfortable. And she searched and she searched and she searched until she found it. I think there's like a few things, like as a church, I think there's a few things in the story that we need to grab onto. Number one, she did not wait until the next day. She didn't put it off. So I think this is like something that we so easily do is we go, man, I know there's like people on my brain that I probably should be searching after, but I'll do it another day, right? Or maybe we have moments, maybe we're standing in line at Starbucks, right? And we see someone, whatever situation, maybe it comes up in topic, or you overhear it at the register, you see someone that is in need. And you think, but not really today. I got other things going on. She does not put it off until the next day. She's not put it off until the next morning. She searches right then and there. She spends time looking. It's going to require our time. Time is like money, right? It's something we hold on to. That's my time. It's my Netflix time, bro. Don't you touch it. Right? She spends time. She never gives up. We have to be a church that never gives up. I don't know if you realize this, but we ain't nowhere near 99% in our city. We got a long way to go. There's a lot of searching to be done. There's a lot of time to be given to that. There's a lot of searching in the dark. Never gives up. She doesn't go after another. Meaning that she doesn't just try to earn like another coin. She doesn't just go back to work. But she searches after the one that was already placed in front of her. See, I think God places people in front of us. I think there's people within our proximity of like influence, right? There's people right in our sphere. And then we say, but maybe it would be easier to just go volunteer at such and such than to talk to the people that are right next to me. She looks for the one that she already had. And she goes to the dirty places. She goes to the places that are uncomfortable. She goes to the places that maybe are not your first instinct of where you want to go. But she's willing to search for lostness there. See, Jesus values us as priceless. See, the only people that have ever lowered the value of anybody is ourselves. Jesus has never lowered the value of anybody, right? That's why he went to the cross for each and every one of us. That's why he died for each and every one of us. So he's never lowered the value of each of us. And you think of the cost, right? You think of the cost of giving up your deity, giving up your crown. Man, if I was like on the throne, I would want to feel like I was on the throne, right? I'd probably start making music like Jay-Z. Like I'd feel like I'm on the throne, right? Jesus gives it all up. Jesus gives up everything to walk to earth and to search after us, to love us. How crazy of a thought is that? And in order to do that, I think he proved that he values us as priceless. Because to give all that up, the value has to be priceless. To give up godhood, clearly we're valued at priceless. There is none of us that could be lost. And Jesus would look, you know what? It's probably not worth it. Just $70. He looks at every single one of us, and we are priceless. We are worth it. Look at this again in verse 9 through 10. And when she has found it, again, there's this implication that she will find it. And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and her neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that was lost. Just so I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents." Every single time, man, they throw a party, they get pumped, they get excited that there is one. And again, you kind of see the same deal. Like if that coin got lost, like I wonder what happened to the coin. If it was like under my couch, like it would get gross, like it would get crusty and stuff. There's no point where she like polishes it up and is really excited to present the coin. She's just excited that the coin is found. Can you imagine that? She brings everyone together. She does the same thing again. She's shouting at everybody. Like you imagine that in today's terms, like she's like searching at night, and then she finds it. Can you imagine that 4 a.m. phone call from that crazy lady? I found my coin. You're like, great, I'm sleeping. She doesn't care. That's how excited she is. Not only could she not wait till morning to find the coin, but she couldn't even wait till morning to tell everybody. She wants them all to know. And I had this thought too. Imagine if it was 4 a.m. Just imagine. She calls. They all come over though, don't they? Why would they come? I think they understand the value of celebrating something that was lost being found. And I think in the end, like this story especially is a really great example of what the church is called to look like. We are called to come together and celebrate. We are called to come together and get excited, not just wait till Sunday, But we are called to be excited about what is happening in one another's lives when something that was lost becomes found, when someone that was lost is suddenly found, when it's a brother or a sister or a friend or someone on the street discovers, man, this Jesus guy, he really loves me. And it doesn't matter all this junk I've done. It doesn't matter how muddy I am. It doesn't matter how nasty I am. It doesn't matter all the crust. Man, Jesus just loves me, and he just wants to put me up on a pedestal and present me and say, I have found you. And they celebrate it together. This is what we're called to do as the church. Not just Sundays, not just baptisms, not just testimony week, but all the time. We should be looking for what is lost. We should be bringing what is lost into foundness. We should be bringing them home, and then we should be celebrating together. So this is not just a picture of Jesus. It is not just a picture of us, but it is a picture of what the church as a collective can do and what it can look like. We are called to seek. We are called to search. We are called to take our light into the darkness. We are called to find what was lost. And when it is, we are called to celebrate. Because we realize the celebration is not about us. It's not about adding one more to our number. It's not about making it 151 now. It's about taking down the percentage of lost. It's about going out there and bringing people back. There's joy with the angels when they hear this. See, the angels get it, but do we? And I get it because this is convicting for me because I started thinking, man, like how many people have I really, just being honest, like have I really brought in that way? I can name a few, sure. Maybe I can name like a decent amount. But I could also name a lot more that I gave up on. I guarantee you I can name more names of people that I've given up on. And I've said, man, it was not worth it. It's too difficult. It's too hard. It's too gross. Too dirty. I'm not doing it. I've given enough of myself. I've walked over enough mountains. I've gone through enough valleys. I'm done. I guarantee you there's more people on that list. And I think if we look at ourselves as a church, surely we can probably say the same thing. There's so many more people that we really should have been searching after. See, to Jesus, love was sitting at the table with anyone. Love was not earned. Love was not conditional. It wasn't based on social or economic status. It was simply love. It was a love that could not fail. It was a love that could not run out. It was a love that never stopped searching. Never stopped searching. So my question for you, church, is as we get ready to wrap up, we're getting ready to do communion, I'm going to pray. Maybe this is even a good thought to be thinking about as you're doing communion. How do we value the lost? Because I think that's what it all rests on, right? Jesus is really loved, personified. He's the best example possible of it and what it looks like. We're called to search. We're called to go out and do these things. But it really rests in the idea of whether we value it. Do we value simply coming to church and getting to know the people that are here and being part of our life groups and being a family? Or do we value bringing other people into the family? Do we value putting people on our shoulders and carrying them home? Because we get to call this home. But my guess is there's a lot of people out there that have completely lost what the idea of home is or what direction that is. We're called to show them. How do we value the lost? God, we are just so grateful for you. God, you're a God that just loves us so unconditionally. Imagine there's so many in here that have like a very similar story. I'm one of them, of what it's like to be a sheep that got muddy and lost and dirty. And you're not a God that scolds. You're a God that simply loves. God, let us never forget that. God, let us be a people that always love. So God, I pray for those of us that are in here. Maybe we've been on this path for a long time, and we have served you for a long time, and we have claimed your name for a long time. God, I pray that you put a desire in us to be good shepherds, that go after the lost. Even if it's 1%, we are going to search until we find. God, I pray for those of us that are in here. I'm sure there's those of us that are in here that maybe we didn't even want to come this morning. Maybe we got dragged here. Maybe we got talked into it. And we're not even sure if you're real. And God, I pray that you would just infiltrate our heart right now. God, I pray that your love would feel so real. Your presence would feel so real. God, that we would know a love like we have never known before. A love that doesn't care about what we've done, what our past looks like. A love that doesn't care any mistakes that we've made, anything that we're ashamed of, anything that we've hidden deep, the secrets that nobody will ever know. You simply love us. God, I pray that we would feel that. God, thank you for being a God that always has searched after us, has always invited us to the table, and has always loved us. In your name, amen.